Once again, for those of you who joined us in the last couple of minutes, thank you so much for taking the time of your day and joining this webinar. We really hope that this will be informative and useful for all of you. And this will give you a new perspective to desktop management is what we believe in. With that said, I would like to do a quick sound check to make sure that all of you are able to hear me clearly. So for that, let me put out a question, a fun question at that maybe. What is your favorite animal? Can all of you answer for that on the chat? I can go first. My favorite animal would be a horse. Guido says Black Panther, that is cool. Gregory, dog, of course. Michael, my wife. Ani, what is your favorite animal?
It would be the horse.
The horse too, yes. The penguin. Penguin is also very cute. Awesome. So that gives us the confidence that everyone can hear us. Awesome. So thank you so much. And Michael, I really like your answer. Okay. So that said, today's session is going to be about remote desktop management with SuperOps.ai. We wanted to conduct this webinar for two reasons. One, mainly because we have launched a bunch of new functionalities in desktop management, and we think that this webinar would be a good way of bringing that to all of you. And the second thing is because we have identified a couple of pain points in desktop management that's prevalent in the MSP industry as of today. And when Anirudh built this solution in the product, his aim was to make sure that these pain points are addressed. So all the features and functionalities that you're going to see today are going to have some kind of differentiator from all of the other vendors available in the market. So that will show you how desktop management can be in the future using SuperOps.ai. That said, I would also like to highlight that after the webinar, we'll be sharing the recording of this session. So you can rewatch and you can always shoot a question to us via email. Also, we have a Q&A panel in this webinar. You can go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A chat panel and throughout the webinar, anytime you get the question, and we'll pick up those questions at the end and we'll be answering those questions live. That said, I would like to introduce the speakers for today. Most of you would know me and Anirudh from the previous webinars, but for the new folks, let me introduce. So the one you see at the bottom with the weird hair, that's me. Everyone calls me Hema internally and all my friends as well. I enjoy talking, so I made a career out of it. So I work as a product marketer here at SuperOps.ai. And we also have Anirudh, who is one of the building blocks of SuperOps AI. He has built the entire RMM module that you see in SuperOps.ai. Let me introduce him. He can speak for himself. Hi, Ani.
Thanks, Hema. So, hi, folks. I'm Ani, the product manager for the RMM module within SuperOps.ai. The challenges that the RMM industry and the overall landscape that has been prevalent over the last 2 decades is what excites me to build a solution that will, take the limits further upon how we can enable our MSPs and internal IT folks to bring that value to the end users. And that is what excites me and keeps me going every day. So I'm very excited to be part of this webinar and walk you through, folks, of how we build SuperOps, what are our perspectives, and how we can, start adding value to you folks. Yeah, back to you, Hema.
Thank you, Ani. That was a very crisp introduction. So that said, I would like to give you a brief look into what we have planned for the next 40 minutes. So I would like to start with a brief introduction into who we are. Most of you would already know us. Most of you would have attended our previous webinars as well. But for the new folks, it's for you. I'll be talking about who we are and what we do and why we do what we do. And then we would like to put a question to all of you, which is to think about today's desktop management. And then Anirudh has a bunch of exciting and new cool stories about desktop management that he wants to share. And then we'll also talk about what's cooking, what's brewing within SuperOps.ai, so that you'll have an idea of what to expect from SuperOps in the next months. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have the questions time at the end. Moving further, the brief introduction that I mentioned. So as we've been repeating, we're called SuperOps.ai, and we are a vendor in the MSP industry. We have built a solution, a unified solution that we think could really help the MSP community. The solution is a fusion of PSA and RMM. So we've understood that both of these are the main services that MSP provides. So when it comes to PSA, you need ticketing and client management, contracts, all SLA and project management for your own IT folks, internal folks, and the technicians and admins to manage your clients. And you also need the monitoring system to manage their endpoints, your clients' endpoints. You need to set up the alerts to manage their desktops. And you also need patch management to deploy patches, and you also need IT documentation. So both of these pillars that MSP highly relies on, we've fused them together and we've built a product out of it. And we understand that it's not just these two. These are the big pillars, but there are so many other smaller tools that the MSP community relies on. For example, Pax8 is one of the recent integration that we've launched. So it's a subscription management solution where you can have all your software licenses purchased and all the licenses put in Pax8, and then from there you can have those subscriptions to all your clients. Now, this Pax8 also needs to talk to your PSA and RMM solution so that you'll have a clear idea of which client is using which subscription and when it's expiring and when they have to renew, and all the information around it. Pax8 is just an example, and we have QuickBooks, Xero, Webroot, a whole bunch of integrations that we really think that the MSP community uses day in and day out. Now, this makes SuperOps a holistic solution where once you log into SuperOps, you will have a full view of everything pertaining to your client, be it the tickets that come in from them, be it the alerts that come in from their assets, or be it the patches that are being deployed to them, or a project that you're managing for them. So everything put together under one platform will take out a lot of the time that you currently put in just juggling between the solutions. Now that brings me to the next slide that I have put together. Now, when we started SuperOps, the first thing that we wanted was to understand what is the actual current pain point problem area in the MSP industry. And we conducted surveys, and we understood that at a minimum, every MSP, no matter the size of the MSP, uses a minimum of 5 tools just to go ahead with their everyday activities. Now, this could be a bunch of solutions for PSA, RMM, project management, IT documentation, or accounting or contracting solutions. Now, this is an area where MSP spends a lot of time going back and forth between the tools. It's not just the time wastage, but there is also a lot of loopholes to miss critical information through the cracks, and it really affects your clients in the experience of the service that you're providing. So we initiated the company, we initiated the solution with a single mind that we need to build everything under one roof. And that's what we've done with SuperOps.ai. We have built a unified solution that brings all of your needs, all of your MSP needs under one roof. Now, that is not so brief about SuperOps.ai. And with that said, I'd like to head into today's topic, which is today's desktop management. So when we think about desktop management, it starts with setting up your, as soon as you get a client, you set up everything for them, beginning from the patches that needs to be deployed to them, the assets that they have, and the IT documentations, everything that around that needs to be set up. Starting from there, to managing any alerts that comes from them, managing and monitoring every day in terms of how the health is of their assets and everything put together. Now, all of this completely comes under desktop management. Now, do you think that your desktop management approach today is good enough? Is today's desktop management of your peers in the industry good enough? Are your clients completely happy with the desktop management service that you're providing? Now that the question is out there, I'd like to point out what we think about today's desktop management. We think that there are a bunch of things that can be changed about today's desktop management. Now, we've put these exaggerated animated images in the screen, but what we're trying to express out of this particular slide is that the problems and the pain points that are there in the whole process of desktop management affects both you as an MSP, your technicians and your admins, and you as an MSP owner, and also your clients and the client users. From your side, when you're being reactive to desktop management, which is you get to know an alert or an issue only when your client raises a ticket. Until then, you don't get to know that there is something wrong with your client's desktop. Now, that is being reactive. Now, what happens when you're being a reactive MSP when it comes to desktop management? You put in all your resources to resolving that one particular issue. You exhaust all your admins by putting them in a firefight mode at all times. Now, this effectively takes away a lot of time, which you could rather use in servicing a new client. So that is what you see on the left, where reactive management leads to exhausted admins and technicians. And this directly translates to clients becoming frustrated in two ways. One, you keep intruding them when they're working with software updates, with asking them to give their laptop for remote sessions and all of that. That is super intrusive. None of your clients' users are liking it even today. And the second thing is the downtime that you're causing to your clients by not having all of the alerts taken care of even before it reaches them. Now, these are the two ways in which the small pain points that are there in the desktop management causes a huge problem to both of you. Now, we have set out to solve this problem that we have seen in the MSP market. That said, I have one question that I wanted to ask all of you, which is to get you thinking about your desktop management services as of today. So do you think that the desktop management service that you're providing to your customers can do with some improvement? Or do you think that it's working perfectly fine as of today? Please go ahead and answer a simple yes or no so that we'll have an idea of, is this a real pain point for all of you? So that Anirudh can put in more of his time in solving this for you. Looks like the answer is exactly how we expected. So this, I'll be telling you what the result is, but there's a clear indicator that we are on the right path in terms of the building of our solution.
True. We look at where our MSP partners can add maximum value to their operations as well as their end clients, and we try to build to optimize that. So that is from where we come from, and that is where we try to move ahead with. So
perfect. All right, let me go ahead and end the poll right away. And let me quickly share the results as well. Well, there are two folks who have said no. I'd like to know how and what they're doing with their desktop management to understand how they have a perfect working system. We'd really like to know. But yes, the whooping answer is that most of you agree that your desktop management services can do with some improvement. So yes, that's exactly what we're going to be looking at in the next few minutes that we have. Ani, over to you.
All right. So thank you, Hema, for that context and the introduction around the key issues that bogs down MSPs of today, right? Looking into where we come from and how our thought process has been to building SuperOps.ai from an RMM perspective is we go to the drawing board with the issues that MSPs face on a day-to-day basis. Summarizing from what you have shared so far, that key image, two things that we try to optimize for. One is the end user experience, and the second, efficiency in operations for the MSP. So with these two key pillars, we built out the entire product, the features. How do we optimize MSP's operations, and how do we give the best end user experience to the client so that their operations, their work is not disrupted as a result of an MSP doing an action in the back end, right? So For the desktop management, those would be our key north stars, north metrics to which we build towards. And here we will actually look at a different approach where we will not just take you through a feature demo of the tool, but we will walk you through some specific use cases, your use cases that our MSPs encounter on a day-to-day basis, where we have had conversations with them, the key issues, and how do we best utilize SuperOps.ai to solve for those particular specific use cases, right? So rather than this session being just a demo of the product, we would like to add value by bringing in real life examples and see how we can put to use our tool to bring those changes and values. So moving to the first story here, right? How is it placed today? For a particular use case here that we'll pick up, say if an MSP has a new client or a new user is being added to a particular client, setting up and configuring a new client on any software tool out there today, or if you hadn't had a particular software that you use, how will you best optimize SuperOps.ai? That is how you will see this particular session here. So in terms of challenges, setting up of a particular client, you will have to look at your patch systems, you'll have to set up antivirus software, you'll have to set up your backup softwares, you'll have to schedule maintenance, you'll have to look at the plethora of softwares that your clients need, you'll have to start managing them, you'll have to configure alerts, and also look at how do you gain the best insights out of their usage so as to optimize your service for them. So these are the typical headaches that as an MSP you might face. Now, moving on, say you hit a particular roadblock on a particular day. One of your users assets has faced an issue with CPU usage. This is another use case that we'll be drilling down to, and we'll also keep a tab of the time that you might spend typically to resolve such an issue, right? Say 45 minutes of client downtime can be a typical issue for an end user. This is why an MSP exists, to save that downtime, to make sure that the end user's work is not disrupted. Now, how will you actually spend the time? You will actually be drilling down, investigating that particular asset, trying to identify a root cause, finding out the root cause, and then fixing it either by directly going in person or by taking a remote session. Either which ways, you will be disrupting the end user's work, right? We will then move on to look at another third use case where, say, a policy violation has happened due to a software issue, and then how do we trigger the multiple alerts there? How do we use the features at our disposal to troubleshoot and fix that particular issue, at the same time not disrupting the end user? Now, these are all dreaded scenarios today if you don't use a very mature RMM software out there, or if you are doing all of this manually on your own on a break-fix basis. And finally, we'll also see how do we resolve a very complex support ticket raised by a client for a particular use case. We'll talk you through all of that in the next slide and the demo walkthrough. So we've seen all these horror stories, and this is where we see SuperOps.ai adding value, right? For example, the setup and the configuration of a new client. Now, I'll just jump over to my demo screen. Yeah. So the particular use case that we have picked up is how do we set up a new client and how do we onboard the new client with all of the configurations that we might have to do for the first time. So here, if you see using SuperOps, I would just skip through the setup pieces in terms of setting up a client, creating a new client. I've created a new client. I've added some requesters to this particular client. I would move on to the RMM setup piece here, right? So once I have a client here, I now need to choose an asset class. As we know, there are asset classes available within SuperOps. You can manage all your Mac as well as your Windows assets. You also have the option to choose how you would want to manage the assets. We have two options here. One is the hierarchical policy, wherein we would have provided these default buckets where your assets would be grouped, and you can apply policies at a group basis, or there is the group based policy where you will have the flexibility to segregate these assets into groups as per your categorization or classification. So this can be at a client level, this can be at a user role level, or any of the other classifications that you can think of. For the sake of this discussion, we will move ahead with the hierarchical policies where we see a lot of our users gaining maximum value here. So let's pick a particular Windows workstation policy example here. Now, once within the Windows workstations policy configuration page, you have all the different functionalities, features that you can use SuperOps to gain maximum value. On the top right, you see that there is the configuration to choose which client site and a particular asset you might want to apply the respective policies for. So for this discussion, I'm going to pick up Winterfell, which is the new client I've added. And the first thing that as an MSP, I would want to do is to set up the patch management, right? The OS patch management, the Windows patch management here. Now, the overall patch management, I can apply it here, I can enable it, and then I can start scheduling and configuring it. When it comes to configurations, you see that we have provided the flexibility to choose the category of these patches. Now, all of these patches, the KBs that you would see coming out from Windows comes with two labels. One is the category label and the other one is the severity label. And we give the flexibility to use these labels to actually configure your policy. So for this use case, say I've chosen the feature packs, I've chosen the security updates, I've chosen the critical updates, and I would also choose the, say, the service packs. And the severity is critical and important. I can apply this AND condition here for all of these packs satisfying this particular severity. Now, this is what we mean by category is and severity is. Now, say in case I want to add another set of categories and I would want to handle it differently, I can go ahead and add a second set here. And I can add another severity condition here, and I can just go on adding more actions as I would want to. So ideally, I would like to keep it at, say, maximum 1 or 2, wherein, say, the features, the security, critical, and service packs would be grouped together with the critical and important severities, and all the other packs with most of the other severities grouped together here. And then once the conditions for this policy are set, I would choose a schedule here. Say I would choose a weekly schedule. I would say every weekly Saturday at 9 a.m. I would like to run this particular policy schedule so that all of these updates are pushed to the assets being managed. So choosing the conditions here, choosing the schedule, that is step 2. Step 3 is the configurations for each of these categories that you saw above. Now you have the critical, the definition, the service, and the feature packs that would be of key interest to me. And I have 3 approval configurations that I can choose. The approve here is the automatic approve that I will choose for the severity important ones. And then I also have the manual approval, wherein if an OS patch is put to manual approval, it will come to my patch list and it will wait for my approval before it goes live and gets picked up for the upcoming schedule. If you choose the approve configuration here, it is auto approved and it will be picked up for the very next schedule, which is on the next Saturday at 9 a.m. And then we also have the reject option here, which I might choose if I want to for the lesser important ones. What happens with a reject configuration is that patch will be rejected as per this rule here, and I will have to go to the patches list to actually convert that to an approval and then push it to the schedule. So for the lesser important ones, say for example, the drivers or the others, I would choose to have that as a reject configuration. When if need arises, I can move to the patches list and I can approve them if required. So we saw that we can pick up the conditions, we can schedule them, I can set an approval configuration, and reboot is a key configuration here for these OS patches. If a particular user is logged in while the OS patch is deployed, what are the options that I have for reboot? I can choose one among the three here. The first one being I can reboot it immediately, but allow the user to save their work. So the reboot will be triggered and then the user would be allowed to save their work. And once their work is saved, the reboot will continue to go and finish the applying the patches to the OS. Second one is force the reboot immediately, which I feel a lot of our users won't be using because that actually creates a very disruptive experience for the end user. But what I've seen from the usage of our tool, the repeatedly ask for permission. The third option is what is majorly used by most of our users, where I can choose the time interval and I can also configure the number of times I want to repeatedly prompt the user for a permission. Say I've chosen here 60 minutes 3 times. So every 1 hour, the permission will be prompted. And after 3 times, we will flash a message saying that your asset is going to be rebooted and you might want to save your particular work. So this is the reboot configuration if the user is logged in. On the other hand, if the user is not logged in, it's a simpler rule here, either reboot immediately or I can choose to reboot later. And here we have seen that most of our MSPs use the reboot immediately option here. So once I've configured OS patches, I have now set the first piece of the puzzle of onboarding the client here. The second one that I would ideally go is once the patches are scheduled, I would then move on to set some actions. Now, these are my typical weekly, fortnightly, or monthly maintenance activities, right? These are some scripts that I have enabled there. And those scripts, for example, clear the DNS cache, clear event logs, all of or run a Windows cleanup, all of this I can set up a schedule. Say here I choose a monthly or I choose a fortnightly basis every second Wednesday. I can choose a time here. I can give a description of it and I can save them. So you will see that all of those are getting saved here. I can schedule a lot of these maintenance actions via scripts here. So the first piece, patch management. Second, maintenance through scripts here. I've taken care of that. And the third one is the bigger piece around software management. What are all the softwares that I would want this new client to have? So that requirement I would have got from the client here. And to solve for that, what we have enabled is we have configured it into a software bundle you see here. So go to software bundles. You can start adding or clubbing all of the softwares as per a particular bundle you might want. Say I want to create a new bundle for engineering folks. I will call this the engineering bundle. And I would start adding all the softwares that those particular users might want, user set might want. So I would add the softwares and I would save this particular bundle, which is the first step for software management, which is the creation of bundles. So the bundle is created. I have grouped my similar softwares here, and I would quickly move back to the policy management page here, where I can configure that particular software set here. So I have the designer bundle here. I have the standard software bundle, and I had just added the engineering bundle here, which I can add. Apart from that, if there are any other softwares ad hoc that I would want to add, I can choose this from the list that we have. So we have integrated with Chocolatey for third-party patch management here. So you can perform all the 3 functions of installation, patch updation, as well as software uninstallation. You will see just right now, once I've added all of this, you can see that all the softwares that I had grouped in the bundles is here. And the softwares that I just added is also here on top of the bundle I've created. I have two configurations for my softwares. One is the install and update, and the second one being the uninstalled one. So this install and update takes care of both installation as well as update if already installed status for softwares. We'll just pick off right from where those softwares are and start updating them. And you will see that we have clubbed this. This is a pretty simple configuration for softwares. Similar to how we saw for patch management, you can also choose a schedule for softwares patches being applied. We understand that you might not want to do all of your patching activities at one schedule, and hence this flexibility in allowing for multiple schedules, right? So for this, I can choose every week on a Tuesday, for starting from, ending never, at what time I want to. I can configure this. And similarly, reboot options, the same, I can give a particular configuration. We understand that not a lot of the softwares applications out there might ask for a reboot of the system, but we have observed there are a few heavy softwares that might require a reboot, and hence the particular configuration we have provided. So I can apply the software management piece and I can save it. So far I've applied the OS patches. I've looked at all the actions, schedules that I want to do, the maintenance actions. I've also taken care of my softwares that I want to install. The other things that I would also set up during onboarding is the antivirus. So here we have Webroot and Bitdefender that we offer. We have a marketplace wherein you can choose which of the two antivirus softwares that you would want to install for your particular clients. We have Webroot and Bitdefender integrated. Say for this discussion, I'm just picking up Webroot here. So I can go to the policy management page. I can pick up Webroot, which I've enabled. And from a backup perspective, for now it is inactive. Again, I have to go to the marketplace and configure the backup. When it comes to backup, we provide the option of Acronis here. So I can just install Acronis in all of my assets that I'm managing, and I can just turn on that particular configuration there, which will enable the backup management for all of the assets. So from an onboarding perspective, we have seen that we have done all the basics, right? And this has happened in less than say 10 minutes or even say 15 minutes, even if you're not used to how the tool works, right? Imagine you had to do this work manually for setting up each and every asset for a new client, or even one single asset if you had to onboard. Look at the manual effort that you would want to. So all of this is done from an onboarding perspective. We now move on to the second phase, which is the monitoring and detection perspective, right? And for that, we have the alert management piece. We have a lot of best practice alerts, default policies that we give out to them. Now, from an alert perspective, I've just configured some sample alerts already for the sake of this discussion. Say firewall is disabled, right? For example, if there is a firewall policy, sorry, that's the wrong one. If the firewall is disabled for this particular policy, I can configure firewall is disabled. The duration is say 5 minutes, and I can then configure a corresponding action if firewall is down. Say if firewall is disabled for 5 minutes, then I can create an alert called firewall disabled with a high priority and a cooling off period. The cooling off period is to prevent SuperOps from creating an alert for a particular time window. I don't want to keep on creating duplicate alerts for the same condition that has been breached, and hence I would configure say 10 minutes or 30 minutes not to create a duplicate alert. So here I can create such alerts. Say firewall is a particular configuration, high CPU usage is another widely used alert, high memory utilization, low disk free space, smart status gives you an idea of how good the hardware is. So we have all of these conditions pre-built into SuperOps, which you can just use to configure the condition. You can then choose a particular action type. We have a lot of actions here. You can create an alert, you can send an email, you can create a ticket, or even you can even run a script to take care of that particular action. So when it comes to hardware and performance, those were the metrics. And from a process perspective, you can choose a process, you can choose a status. Say, for example, if a particular process is not running, I can then say, I will just press the SuperOps RMM. So I can create this alert, say, if the SuperOps RMM agent is not running, then what do? I can create an alert, I can create an email, or I can run a script. All of the actions are standard. So this is another use case where I can configure an alert. Similarly, all the events that you see, the important ones, the information events, all of that, you can create alerts for even them. And for general monitoring, we have your agent status, which is the RMM agent, and then you have the custom fields that you would have set up for this particular client in assets. If any of those custom fields is down, if you are updating via a script, you can create an alert here, and that would trigger an alert. You can trigger a script, or you can trigger a ticket, just like how we saw for all of this. Now, just imagine with just the installation of the RMM agent, you're able to set up this entire piece for this client. Else you would have to be manually monitoring all of them, manually setting up all of these configurations, your softwares, all of your OS. With just the SuperOps.ai's RMM agent, you're able to take care of all of these actions here. So that is from a setting up or onboarding perspective. We will quickly move on to one of our key value additions here, where the .ai piece in SuperOps.ai, right? This is the value addition that we are bringing right off the bat. It is the intelligent alerting, where our AI engines work at the back end. We have 3 metrics that we have configured as currently as configured as part of the AI engines, which is the CPU usage, memory usage, and the disk usage. If there is any unusual usage in any of these 3 particular metrics, SuperOps.ai automatically detects it, and you can create an alert based on that. So this will tell you that, say, for example, a particular asset is usually consumes only, say, 40% of the CPU. Suddenly you see a spike to, say, 60-70%. There is an anomaly. AI detects this anomaly and it triggers an alert for the MSP to look into. This is the AI that we have brought to the RMM piece, and we are just getting started on that, right? So from a setup onboarding perspective, we looked at all of these scenarios. Now we'll quickly move on to the other use cases, the other horror stories that we had seen. Right? Say, first horror story that we saw was, say, an alert has been triggered as a result of a high CPU usage. Now, if you had to troubleshoot this using a remote session, or if you had the asset at your end, you will have to look at task manager, you will have to look at multiple other parameters, get into terminal, start using, look at the usage, and then find the root cause, and then kill a particular process. But when it comes to SuperOps.ai, say you have received this alert.
So sorry for this, and
That's fine. Yeah. So I would just look at the alerts here. I've got an alert, say, I've got an alert here, say, which says high CPU usage for a particular asset here. So what I will do is I will just move to that particular asset here. I would look at the data that this agent has brought from this particular asset. You see that the CPU usage is here, the memory usage, what is the patch status, whether it is up to date, what antivirus is configured, and what is the status of that antivirus, it is up to date, what is the traffic, net traffic, what is the disk current usage, how much GB is consumed, what is available. So all of this is brought in a summary here in terms of cards. You also see the firewall status, and then you could deep dive into any of the asset info that we have brought. Say this asset is Windows 10 one. What is the model? It's an HP Pavilion. What is the host name? Who is the manufacturer? And all of that related information that the agent picks up. What you see on the right hand side here is the event log here, activity log, wherein you would get a first glimpse into what's happening inside the asset. Now, if you want to take a deep dive into any of that, say in our particular use case, the usage is pretty high, right? So I would come here, I would look at what is the CPU, what are the processes in the CPU, what is the memory being consumed, what is the disk volume, and I have a load of other high level data points that you saw in the summaries page. You would look at the details here on this particular screen. I can look at all the event logs. I can look at what is the page info, what is the video card that is installed here. So I can look at all of these and arrive at a particular root cause. So here, say, for example, the high CPU usage is because of one of the applications that is up and running. I can choose to stop that particular application or process right from here and take care of that particular issue. So the high CPU usage issue is taken care of right here remotely. You would see that this particular asset page has a lot of tabs. Now, the summary tab we saw, the details tab we saw, and we would now move on to see all the other tabs that can be used to troubleshoot, to analyze, to arrive at the root cause, and how do we then fix it, right? So for that, let us look at another use case here, which is, say, a particular application, Splashtop, is throwing up an error, right? We are not able to connect to Splashtop, or Splashtop is down and one of the policies is being violated. So for that, I'm going to use another tool at my disposal, which is the registry editor. So the registry editor is a very powerful tool in the hands of an MSP, where the MSP can remotely look into the five hives of this particular Windows machine, and I can drill down to what that exact issue is for a particular application. If I've drilled down that, okay, this application is what is causing an issue, I can drill down to that particular application. Say, for example, Splashtop software is the issue here. I can then go to Splashtop value data here. I can see what are the configurations, if the right configurations are there, and I can also make changes using the registry editor. So if I want to make a change, if, say, for example, the SuperOps agent is erroneous here, and I just want to make a change using the agent's name here. So I would then move on to the agent here. I would see that the location is here, and say I want to edit. I can make edits to the registry values from the registry editor. I can also create new keys. I can add values, all the string, dword, keyword, multi-string, and expandable string values. I can add values here, and I can play around with the particular fix that I want to do for this particular issue. So the registry editor is a very powerful tool that we have enabled for the MSPs to troubleshoot and fix the issues as per their requirement for our Windows assets here. So that is the third use case that we wanted to cover. And final use case that we want to cover is a pretty complex one, where a support ticket is being raised by an end user saying that they are not able to install a particular application. Now, that's a pretty blank use case where we'll have to figure out what the issue is. Say, for this particular asset, we have got a ticket that the end user was not able to install a particular application. We've got the ticket here. We see that this is for this particular asset. I can just move from the ticket to the associated asset, and I would then carry on with my troubleshooting. Say, I would see what is the root cause here. Is the disk space all right? If we have enough memory here, all of that. And say if the case here was that the disk space wasn't enough to download a particular file and install it, I would then choose to run scripts here. From a script perspective, I have a lot of scripts that I can run. So I'm just trying to optimize for the screen here. I can run a lot of scripts. I can choose the scripts here, and I can run it immediately or I can run it on schedule. So I can choose which script I want to say. Because of this issue is due to high disk usage, I would clear a lot of event logs. I would do a lot of cleanup activities. I can line all of them up. I would run the scripts right from this asset, and I can go check that this is being scheduled. It will be run as per the current schedule, or I can run it immediately. So the one that we just triggered is status is in progress, and you will get a success message here once the output is through. So I found out that this asset has a high disk usage. I ran a script to clean up a lot of the space, and now I will move on to enable that particular application for that user. And for that, I am going to use the file explorer, the remote file explorer, where we have given the typical feeling of browsing through the files you would locally on your computer. So for this particular asset, I go to the file explorer. I see that you have the C and the D drives. I can traverse through all of the files just like how you would on your explorer locally. I can add files, I can create new files, I can create new folders, I can traverse back and forth. I can move files from one location to the other. I can rename the files. I have all those options provided as part of my remote file explorer. For this use case, now that I've solved for the disk usage, what I'm going to do next is I am going to upload a particular file from my local, which is basically the installation file for the application which the user was not able to run or install. So you will see that I am trying to upload that one file here. And now that I've uploaded it, what I can do is I have to run this installation file. And for that, I am going to use another key feature, a very powerful feature, which is the terminal, which is the command prompt, right? The CLI. I will use the command prompt as a system admin to run this particular file that I just uploaded to this asset using the remote file explorer. I'm trying to traverse to that particular location. And I'm trying to run that file. You will see that I have run that installation file, and that particular file has also given me an output. So you will see that I have used almost all of the features at my disposal. I have a remote service viewer. I have a remote process viewer. I have the registry editor. I have the file explorer, and I can also run scripts along with taking the powerful terminal session to run any application or to perform any additional activity that I want to on this particular asset. So the other things that we've maybe skimming through here is you can associate documents, IT documents to a particular client. You can set up SOPs for a particular client, which you can refer back to. You can even go to drill down to an asset level. You can set up passwords that you can share with your clients, which you can associate with your clients here. So all of this forms together the end-to-end desktop management and how we have enabled all of this for our MSPs using SuperOps.ai. So that was a quick high-level view of the multiple features that we have here through use cases. And eventually where we come down to is the two key pillars that we first talked about: the MSP's operations efficiency, and second, the end user's experience while MSP is carrying out their operations. So we have optimized for both of these metrics here, thereby making the MSP's business a success. So back to Hema.
Hey, Ani, that was a really nice demo. And I think I also learned a couple of things in your demo. Thank you so much for that. And for those of you with us today, I really hope that it was helpful and the desktop management has been simplified to all of you. With that, the question that I have for all of you right now is about the desktop management in SuperOps and how many of you would like to try it in your own account. So if you're an existing customer and you're already using it, you can go ahead and choose the first option in the poll that is appearing on your screen. And if not, if you're a customer, but you would like to start trying this, you can choose the second option, where if you choose it, Ani, who just spoke now, will reach out to you and will help you get started with it. And if you are on trial with SuperOps, then maybe your account manager can help you get started with desktop management. If you do not have a trial right now, then we can help you with it. And then we can also help you with desktop management, and you can start figuring out, exploring how you can manage the endpoints of your clients using SuperOps. So feel free to choose any of the options and we'd love to help you with it. Let me give a few more seconds for all of you to respond. Okay, looks like we have a good mix of customers and people who are on trial. That's good. Going to the next part of it, which is what's cooking with us, which is one of the main things that we would like to talk about, which we explained in our previous webinar, is the mobile app. This is one of the things that a lot of our customers and prospects have been asking about. A mobile app which lets them do all of the basics on the go, right? Like logging a new ticket or replying to a ticket or just running a script, or if you're on the way to your client's site and if you want to know their exact location, you can just click and navigate to their site directly from your mobile app. And if you want to call a requester, you can just call them on a click right from the mobile app. And it's not just this, we have a lot more that's coming up on the mobile app. Once it's ready, we'll be reaching out to you and we'll be explaining to you what all it can do. Now, finally, I think this is one of the most exciting questions for all of our webinar attendees. Influence our roadmap, right? We have a bunch of things that Anirudh and the other product managers are working on, and we'd like to prioritize based on what you think would be needed right away. So you can go ahead and select the ones that you think would help you right away so that we can start prioritizing them and putting our efforts and focus into those. So we have 4 options which we can prioritize based on the results now. The chat from system tray icon, the network discovery for the network monitoring side of the world, the global search, and the in-app notifications. Okay, looks like network discovery and global search is winning the race. Ani, that's for you.
Correct. Yeah. So that gives a lot of insight to us as product managers on how we prioritize and what to prioritize next, and how do we build the roadmap for our users, right? Being conscious of the time we have left, another 4 to 5 minutes, yeah. I just want to pick up the questions that have come in, right? So the first one
from Anthony.
Anthony, so Anthony, I'm a one-person shop managing roughly 200 points. How can I move my tickets from my current vendor to your platform? So Anthony, our customer success team will get in touch with you. We have figured out ways on how you can move or migrate your tickets into SuperOps. We have solutions for that. We can get into a call, specific call, and start answering how we can do that, right? So we will get in touch with you immediately after, and we'll see that how we can do that. The second question from Anthony is, how would I do a drop mass deployment of our agents? So we are figuring out a couple of ways on how we can do that right now. Now, using the SuperOps MSI link, you can share that with a lot of our end users, and you can install them. The second way that is currently under development is using the agent to deploy to a bunch of assets and then mapping the clients and their sites back using SuperOps. So Anthony will be sure to address that particular point also in our conversation that we want to have with you right after the call. We would be reaching out to you, setting up some time and helping you answer these questions. One question from Nick is, policies are either hierarchical or group based. You can't mix them. Nick, from a policy asset group wise, right? You're right. You can't mix it in the current setup. But what you can do is you can bring the flexibility of the hierarchy into the group based itself, the way that you're grouping it. So hierarchical is typically to provide that setup for a simple MSP, an MSP who's starting out and who doesn't have a lot of categorization when it comes to assets. You can use the hierarchy, but once you start using the group-based one, you can bring the flexibility of hierarchy using the way that you categorize the group-based asset class here. So we will address that. If you want a follow-up call, we'll set up a call and we'll help you address how we can bring that flexibility back here. Another question from Nick is, can you have a policy which patches updates on different schedules? For example, yes, Nick. So you can set up multiple schedules for the different types of policies. The critical ones can be on a weekly, the optional ones can be on a monthly, the drivers ones can be on a fortnightly. You can bring all that from within the patch management page. Can custom non-chocolatey applications be installed is another question from Nick. So currently, Nick, no, you can't install them through the software management, but how you can install those applications is by using a combination of the other tools that we just saw. For example, you can just upload the installation file using the remote file explorer, and you can then run that particular installation file using the terminal. So that is a workaround that we currently can think of. Nick's next question is, can alerts be configured for custom conditioning? For example, a file is deleted, a service is stopped. Yes. So all of these cases, you can configure alerts, and you can have them created as tickets, and you can even, schedule actions if one of those conditions are met, Nick. Yeah, all of that can be taken care of using SuperOps. Next is Anthony's question on, if I run a script on multiple assets, do you provide information on result for each asset? Yes, Anthony, you can go to the assets script page where you will see the output of that particular script. You will see the success factors or whatever the output from the script was. You can see it at an asset level. Yes. George Farrell has a question. Will Linux be added at some point? Yes, George, Linux is very much on our roadmap. We're just trying to prioritize on the immediate features and when we should pick up Linux, right? So we're just moving from strength to strength, and Linux would be the next thing on our radars in a couple of months' time. So these were all the questions that we have received so far. I'm just checking to see if there are any chats that have come in. I think we have a couple of questions come in from the chat also. Can we create defined scheduled actions? Yes, we can define the scheduled actions. We can create them, Anthony. Another question is, can we create task lists to follow for onboarding or other processes? From an onboarding perspective, we are looking at options on how we can provide a sequence of actions during onboarding. So that is under development, Anthony. We would be looking at, say, step 1 is run this script, step 2 is perform this, step 3 is run another script, step 4 is so on. So we are trying to provide that, a step-by-step sequence of actions for onboarding. We are currently under development for that. Guido has a question. Hi, Guido. I'm happy that you could join this webinar. Can we copy a policy so we do not need to redo all that? So that enhancement is currently being picked up, Guido. So you can just copy the entire policy and you could just make those changes. That is currently in the works. As you guys would have noticed, we ship a lot. Our pace of building and shipping is pretty fast. So we run with a bunch of enhancements and new features, and we like to quickly ship them out. And another question Anthony has is, can we also access PowerShell? Yes, you do have the command prompt as well as the PowerShell options that you can do that. And Michael has just dropped in a message, just keeping tabs on the progress. Thanks, Michael. It's nice to see you back on the product call here. So we've tried to answer most of the questions here from the chat, as well as the questions that were put out. For those that I have not been able to pick up an answer to the participants, I would be reaching out on mail along with the customer success agent. We can get into a quick call or answer your questions through mail itself, however you see fit. So that's it from my end, folks. Thanks for joining in.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Annie, for taking up all of the questions and quickly answering them. For those of you who had probably missed the questions, we can always reach out to Anirudh. You have his email ID, and you can shoot any of the questions to him. And we will be sending this recording, as we mentioned earlier, and we'll be following up with you as well based on your responses to the polls. Thank you so much for joining, and keep joining our webinars. Hope this was interesting and useful to you. Take care, all of you. Bye-bye.